بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الكريم. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. اللهم فقهنا في الدين وعلمنا التأويل ونوّر قلوبنا بمعرفتك واشرح صدورنا بنور كتابك وسنة نبيك واحفظنا عن زلل وخطأ في بيان مرادك. So Bismillah, yesterday we were discussing, we were saying that as far as possible we always link the hukam to the illah, because the illah gives wujud, gives existence to the hukam. Without the illah, the hukam can't come into being, won't exist. However, there are instances where it's not possible to link the illah to the hukam. So we did one example yesterday where it's not possible for us to link the hukam to the illah because the illah in this instance is being brought about because of the sabab. Or there's a problem with the illah itself. Either the illah is not mukallaf for the sharia, for example, where animal damages certain crops. So the animal is not mukallaf, it's not a being who has ikhtiyar or volition. So therefore we can't apply the hukam to the animal, but rather the person who was driving the animal, the sa'iq, and so on and so forth. Now we come to another instance, and we did touch upon this previously under qiyas. Another instance where we will link the hukam to the sabab and not its illah. And that is where the illah, if you can recall, we did, it must be ma'akul. And I explained it, ma'akul means it must be something tangible, something that can be measured, something that you can pivot the hukam on. If it's not tangible, it can't be measured, there's no way to measure it, it cannot be used as a yardstick. Then in that case, we can't use that as an illah. Sorry, we can't use it as an illah. We have to then go to the next step, which is to use a sabab, which is tangible, as a stand-in for the illah, because that would give us a measuring stick, that would give us a yardstick by which we are able to implement the law. Simple example of that to explain, to understand is that, for example, if a person is traveling, the actual illah for not allowing or to waiver or to give permission for that person not to fast while traveling and not to perform Jummah and so forth, the actual illah is what? Mashaqqa, difficulty. But now difficulty is an intangible. It's not something which has a physical form. And there's no way for us to measure difficulty. How do you know the person is in difficulty? How do you know what extent of difficulty? Because a person, for example, can travel to a distant land, and especially in our time, and is relatively comfortable. He's got all the means and all the amenities by him on the aeroplane and on the various types of modes of transport that he might be using to get to that country. On the other hand, a person might be traveling a short distance, but the amenities to that particular place, not the same, not as easy, not as user-friendly and so forth. So he might be undergoing greater mashaqqa than difficulty. So there's no way for us to measure difficulty. So rather than applying it to something which we can't say, obviously we can't leave it to the individual. And if you feel mashaqqa, then don't fast. And if you don't feel mashaqqa, then fast, even though you're traveling. That's going to lead to a whole lot of confusion. So we rather attach the hukam of not fasting and so forth to what? To something which is tangible, and that is safar. The reason why a person experiences mashaqqa, the sabab of it, the cause of it is what? Traveling, safar. So therefore, safar will be in place of the actual mashaqqa, and we'll use, although it's a sabab, and we'll use that as a measuring stick for wavering, fasting, and so forth. All the various rukhas that applies to musafir will be based and will pivot and will go around the sabab of traveling itself and not mashaqqa. Understood that?
Sure.
Right, so that's what he's explaining now. Right? So ثم السبب قد يقام مقام العلة عند تعذر الاطلاع على حقيقة العلة تيسيرا للأمر على المكلف. And then thereafter, meaning this is now the second reason or the second instance where the illa, the hukam applies is being connected to the sabab and not the illa. Thereafter, the sabab, qad again, was the meaning of sometimes. Taqlid. Sometimes it takes the place, it substitutes for the illa. When? In the ta'adhur al-ittala, when it is difficult for us to come to know or to uncover or discover ala haqiqat al-illa, to discover the reality of the illa. That is the or ya haqiqa means thubut. It's impossible or difficult for us to uh, come to know whether the illa is established or not. Why taysiran al-amri ala al-mukallaf, in order to make things easy upon the mukallaf, upon the individual carrying out al-hukam. ويسقط به اعتبار الإله, and as a result of that, considering the illa falls off, no longer applies, is not applicable. ويدار الحكم على السبب, and the hukam will revolve around the sabab. ومثال example في الشرعيات in أحكام in the laws of Sharia is what? النوم الكامل, deep sleep, for example. Right, so deep sleep, why? For example, the actual illa for why a person's wudu breaks when they sleep is not the sleep itself, because sleep is not hadath. Sleep isn't hadath. There's nothing. There's no khuruj from any part of his body. There's no khuruj hadath from any part of his body. So sleep itself is not, although it's the illa, it's not. It's no way for us to measure or to know that when you're falling asleep. But rather, what happens is when you fall asleep, it leads to the sabab, which is the relaxation of the muscles, which causes the person then to break wind and so forth. But again, there's no way for us to measure that. At what point does that happen? Because you're unconscious, you're sleeping. How are you going to know? How are you going to measure that? So because it's not possible for us to tie the hukum directly to the not norm, is that istirkhal mufasil is the illa. So because we can't attach the hukum to the actual illa, which is the relaxation of the muscles, we say that the sabab of the relaxation of the muscles, the cause, what causes the muscles to relax, is the sleep. When you become sleepy, your body relaxes, which causes the muscles to relax, which leads to hadath. Okay? So because we can't tie to istirkhal mafasil, because there's no way for us to know at what point istirkhal mafasil, relaxation of the muscles, take place, we tie it to the sabab, which is the sleep. Okay? Because sleep is a measurable thing. So if a person falls asleep, you will just assume your hadath took place and your wudu broke. That is much easier than telling the person that you need to keep a check and see whether when your muscles are relaxed. That's going to be impossible. فإنه لما أقيم مقام الحدث سقط اعتبار حقيقة الحدث. Because once sleeping has been placed as a substitute for the hadath, for the actual passing of wind, etc. سقط اعتبار حقيقة الحدث, considering whether hadath actually occurred or not, is waived, falls away, is no longer considered. ويدار الانتقال على كمال النوم, and now the breaking of the wudu will revolve around deep sleep. Understood?
Sure.
Third example. وكذلك الخلوة الصحيحة لما أقيمت مقام الوطء سقط اعتبار حقيقة الوطء فيدار حكمه على صحة الخلوة في حق كمال المهدي ولزوم عدته. Similarly, when a person gets married, for him to pay the mahar and so forth, and for iddah to take place, should it divorce her, the actual illa is consummation of the marriage. But how are you going to find it? You can't. Well, you might be able to find it out, but it's now you are, how can you say, you are digging into people's private lives, and that's something which is private. Consummation of the marriage. It's not something which is appropriate for even the qadi to find out. That did you have relationships with your wife or not, with your newly married wife or not? So because it is a bit difficult for us to ask, delving into personal business, such as that, something sensitive as that, which might cause embarrassment and so forth. So therefore, the Ahnaf say, if the person spent some privacy with the woman and there was no barrier between you and the woman, such as haid and so forth, then that khalwatu sahiha, that privacy, understand, that valid privacy will count in place, will stand in place of the actual illah, which is the jima'ah, which is the actual consummation. So why? Because khalwatu sahiha is the sabab of the consummation of the marriage. Having privacy leads to the consummation of the marriage. And similarly, khalwatu sahiha, a valid moment of privacy, is substituted for actual consummation. And because of which actual consummation will no longer be considered. فيدار الحكم على صحة الخلوة. So now the hukam will revolve around a valid moment of privacy في حق كمال المهر, with regards to the person having to pay the full mahar to the wife, ولزوم الإدة, and making idda compulsory upon her should he divorce her thereafter. وكذلك السفر لا مقيم مقام المشقة في حق رخصته سقط اعتبار حقيقة المشقة ويدار الحكم على سفر نفس السفر. And like that, the fourth example, journeying or traveling itself, once it stands in as a substitute for difficulty with regards to the rukhsa, with regards to the relaxation of the laws of the Sharia, the actual mashaka, real or actual difficulty, will no longer be considered, and the hukam will now revolve around traveling itself, and not whether difficulty was experienced or not. حتى إن sultan, to this extent, that if a king, sultan, لو طاف في أطراف مملكته يقصد به مقدار السفر كان له رخصة في الإفطار, that if he was to travel to the furthermost corners of his kingdom, and obviously a king will travel in luxury, he probably have no mashaka. You understand? In today's time, a president traveling on the presidential jet, Air Force One, whatever. So if he was to travel to the furthest ends of his kingdom, and he intends safar thereby, the full what you call distance of safar, كان له رخصة, he will also be allowed to take advantage of the rukhsa, of the relaxation of the laws with regards to iftar, not fasting, al-qasr, halving the salah, etc. وقد يسمى غير السبب سببا مجازا. In third instance, where the sabab stands in place of the illah, is where sometimes something which is not the sabab. This is now a different discussion. So that's done. But now they say sometimes something which is not the sabab is sometimes called the sabab majazan. Right? Out of ease, again, for ease of use, for us getting a better understanding of the masala, we sometimes refer to something which is not the sabab. In reality, we call it the sabab majazan. What you call figuratively speaking, not in reality. كاليمين يسمى سببا للكفارة. Example, taking an oath is called the sabab of kafara, right? It is a sabab of kafara. وإن ليس بسبب في الحقيقة, even though in reality it is not a sabab. While فإن السبب لا ينافي وجود المسبب, because the sabab can't be contrary to the hukam. The sabab can't act contrary to the hukam. When you take an oath, the purpose of taking an oath is what? To remain true to the oath, not to break the oath. Understand? So the hukam is what? The hukam of taking an oath is actually what? That you remain true to the oath. But now, when you break the oath, you have to give kafara, which is contrary to the reason why you took the promise in the first place. And so, for example, I'll take an oath never to hit my mother, for example, to protect her. So obviously, you don't want to do that. That's why you're taking an oath. You've got anger issues. So you take an oath like that, I'm not going to hit my wife. And so you've got anger issues, so you make that, you take an oath. But the purpose of the oath is what? Not to do it. Whereas here the hukam, whereas kafara is what the opposite of that. Kafara is when you break your oath. Understand? So in reality, the taking the oath is not the sabab of kafara. Breaking the oath is the sabab of kafara. But we say that taking the oath is the sabab majazan. Understand? وَالْيَمِينُ يُنَافِي وُجُوبَ الْكَفَارَةِ, because taking an oath contradicts the whole purpose, the whole necessity of kafara. Understand? فَإِنَّ الْكَفَارَةَ إِنَّمَا تَجِبُ بِالْحِنْ, because kafara only becomes compulsory when you break the oath, not when you uphold the oath. And you normally take an oath to uphold the oath. So the sabab can't contradict the hukam, which is kafara. So in reality, yameen can't be the sabab of the kafara, but we say it is majazan, figuratively speaking, because if it wasn't for you taking an oath, you wouldn't have to now give kafara for breaking the oath. Okay? So it sort of acts like an oath, but it can't really be, but it can't be in reality. وَبِهِ يَنْتَهِي الْيَمِينُ, and by means of breaking the oath, the yameen comes to an end. The oath which we have is broken. وَكَذَلِكَ تَعْلِيقُ الْحُكْمِ بِشَرْطِ كَالطَّلَاقِ, and similarly to suspend the hukam on a shart, such as talaq, in دخلت الدار فأنت طالق, والإتاق, or to free a slave, يسمى سببا مجازا. This ta'liq, suspending the divorce or the freedom on that dukhul dar, for example, we call this a sabab also by majazan. Why majaz? وأنه ليس بسبب في الحقيقة, because in reality this is not the sabab. لأن الحكم إنما يثبت إن الشرط, because the hukam only comes into being once the shart is found. It is dukhul dar in our example. Dukhul dar is the actual sabab of the divorce falling or of the slave becoming free, not the ta'liq itself. Okay? If you enter the house. Okay? والتعليق ينتهي وجود الشرط في وجود الشرط, and the ta'liq, the suspension of the hukm of divorce or itaq, comes to an end when the shart is found, which is dukhul dar. فلا يكون سببا, so if it can't be the sabab in reality, مع وجود التنافي بينهما. Why? Because there's a contradiction between the two. You took the ta'liq so that it doesn't happen in the house, it does, to prevent the person from entering the house. So it can't be the reason why the divorce is now falling. The exact opposite reason for why you took the ta'liq, or is causing the talaq or the itaq to occur. Understood that? So in such instances, we say that this is a sabab, but it's only majazan, figurative speaking, not in reality. Understood? So that's just again for ease, understand? Make things easy to understand the hukam. When does the hukam come into being and when is the hukam taking place? Okay, inshallah, we'll stop there today for now. If there's any questions you didn't understand, you can message me or I can explain it again tomorrow, inshallah. جزاك الله خير. سبحان الله وبحمده سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.